Welcome into this edition of the Vinyl Voyage. I am your host, Keegan Matheson, and today we are going to talk about the best albums of my life. Basically, what I'm going to do is, I turned 23 yesterday, so what I'm going to do is from 1997 to 2020, we are going to count down the best albums of each year that I've been alive. And let me tell you, some years were more difficult than others to pick one album from each year, and some years I couldn't figure out which one to choose. So I'm going to do my best, and hopefully you enjoy this at home. I was born in 1997, so let's start with 1997's best album, in my opinion, Radiohead's OK Computer. This is a pretty interesting record. I mean, it's got a lot of electronic in it, but it's also rock in it, what people know Radiohead has. My favorite song in here is probably Airbag. Karma Police is probably the most popular song on this album. Paranoid Android is also pretty good too. But you know, it's a sign of the times in 1997. We were moving into more technologically driven music. It wasn't quite as basic as Bruce Springsteen going into the booth and recording his vocal and we were getting real live instruments. No, we were using electronics to record music now because it was 1997 in the new age. So Radiohead's OK Computer, best album of 1997. All right, for 1998, I threw the white flag up. I'm sorry. We were so early on in the list, but in 98, the big albums were Outkast, Aquemini, I believe, and I've just never been a huge fan of hip-hop, rap, R&B, and I never identified with any of those albums. Also a big album is Neutral Milk Hotel from that year. Never really struck a chord with me either. So 1998 is not really my favorite year in music, and I don't really have a record from 1998. But if I had to choose one, my favorite bit of media in 1998 was probably The Big Lebowski. So I'd probably pick that soundtrack. It's probably my favorite record of 1998. I do not own said soundtrack, but I think it's fantastic. It's got Kenny Rogers on it, back in his 70s rock days, and it's so good. Condition My Condition was in. Everybody knows the scene I'm talking about when you watch that movie. And Bob Dylan's Man in Me. So it's got a lot of great tunes on that album, and I know all those songs didn't come out in 1998, but I feel like it's a very fitting album for 1998 as far as The Big Lebowski and how big of a thing it was. I know it was more of a cult movie when it first came out, but I think it's really supplanted itself as one of the best movies of all time. So shout out to Jeff Bridges for 1998. All right, moving on to 1999. We have Metallica, S&M. This is a beautiful metal album. Okay, I know some people don't really like metal, but this is Metallica with the San Francisco Symphony. So that's why it's called S&M. And I was debating on whether to add live albums to this, but I'm definitely going to add live albums to this. Because I feel like music is made to be experienced live. And this speaks, man. This speaks because I don't think Metallica's music has sounded any better than it does on this album. I love the symphony with Metallica, and their music is not what you would consider to be symphonic, but they made it, and it's very beautiful, and I love this album. Great album. I'd have to say that No Leaf Clover is probably my favorite song on this album. I think that was an original that they made for this album, so it's fitting that it's original, and it came out in 1999. All right, New Millennia. My favorite album of 2000, the year 2000. What was happening in the world in the year 2000? Y2K, where people thought that the computers were all going to crash and the stock market was going to plummet because we thought that when it changed to 2000 and not 1900 that it would be some big deal. Well, in the shadows, we have U2. Which, I mean, they're probably best known for their 1987 album, The Joshua Tree. But this album is fantastic. And a return to form after a questionable stretch when they released Pop. I believe that was in 1997, 96 release. And that was, as I said, a lot more electronic music then. But this one's kind of a return to form, and it's very pretty, very beautiful album. I love Beautiful Day, Stuck in the Moment. That whole A side is untouchable. The B side, it's still good. It's just not as good as that A side with Stuck in the Moment, Elevation, Walk On, Kite, and In a Little While. I don't think you can beat the A side of All That You Can't Leave Behind by U2, 2000's best album. I'm debating on whether to show you the cover of this album because it's like sort of scandalous, but it doesn't show anything. It got banned in the U.S. It's got a nice story to it. This cover got banned in the U.S. because it was too racy. So this is the U.K. cover, and it's more collectible. So I have it. That's the only reason why I have it. It's not really my thing, but this is The Strokes. Is This It? There you go. The Strokes are a fantastic band, absolutely fantastic. They are from New York, and the lead singer, Julian, he kind of has his own tone to his voice, more so than any other singer in modern rock music. It's fantastic how he does it. He sings into the microphone. He's one of those that gets really close, so it kind of sounds booming. And he's got great vocals. And the Strokes are just a fantastic band with a lot of catchy songs. Is This It? This is from 2001. My favorite album of 2001. I've probably Last Night, Someday. Those are the most popular ones. There's a lot of great songs on here, I have to say. So give Is This It by the Strokes a listen. Best album of 2001. All right, moving on. We have Songs for the Deaf. This is an album by Queens of the Stone Age, back when they had Dave Grohl from Nirvana and Foo Fighters as their drummer, which I thought that was really cool. They're considered kind of a super group, Queens of the Stone Age. This is the Vinyl Me Please exclusive, so that's why it has that little Obi strip right there. But this is a nice red pressing of a 2002 classic. Songs for the Deaf is also a great song on the album. What is the song that's always mentioned the most? No One Knows. No One Knows is probably the biggest song on this album, and I have to say that's the song people think of when they think of Songs for the Deaf. Queens of the Stone Age, probably their best outing as an album, but not my favorite outing as an album. We'll talk about that later. And this is 2002's quintessential album. Awesome. This is probably one of my favorite top 10 records of all time. Maybe top 5. I don't know. I haven't really asked myself this question. But this is what I think 2003's best album is. This is the White Stripes' Elephant. So many great songs on here. We got Seven Nation Army, which is still screamed today to top of people's lungs at sporting events everywhere and soccer matches. Just Don't Know What to Do with Myself. Ball and a Biscuit is very good. It's a beautiful blues lick that he keeps playing over and over, and I wish that I could play it with the ferocity that Jack White does. That's the members of this band is Jack White and Meg White. The White Stripes, beautiful Detroit-based garage rock sounding band, and that the two-piece combo and Jack's plastic guitar and Meg's kind of beginner level or entry level drumming. It's not I'm not saying she's a bad drummer, because she's a fantastic drummer, one of the best I've ever heard, but she does stuff a little bit more simpler than a lot of technical drums. Like her kit's not very, very technical, but it sounds like it packs a punch, and she beats the drums like no other woman I know of. And I hate that they don't exist anymore, but Hardest Little Button to Button was a great music video, that I have to say. That's probably the best music video of all time. And so 2003 quintessential album, The White Stripes, Elephant. All right, moving on. 2004, The Killers, Hot Fuss. This is a fantastic pop rock album, and this is their debut. This is a Las Vegas-based band, and they actually got signed to Island Records, which is a UK-based recording company. And people probably know this album by Mr. Brightside. That's probably the most important or distinguishing song on this album, I'd have to say. All these things that I've done, somebody told me, all these are pretty much classics for any Killers fans. Brandon Flowers is the lead vocalist of this band, and they just know how to make a pop rock record. They just came out with one actually in 2020, and it's very, very good. I don't know that it's quite up to par as Hot Fuss, but this is a fantastic album and a quintessential album for 2004. All right, we're going into what I personally, this is going away from the popular albums of the time, because this one is probably no critic's favorite album, but it's mine because this was a special album for me when I was growing up, and it's 2005's Switchfoot, Nothing Is Sound. Stars is probably the biggest song on this album. Daisy's a beautiful exit song, I'd have to say. The Shadow Proves the Sunshine's pretty great too. Switchfoot is a San Diego-based band. They're usually put in the Christian music genre, I'd have to say, or at least that's the circles that they run in, is Christian music. Their lyrics aren't overtly Christian. It's just basically that they're very clean and they don't really curse or anything in their albums. And as a person that grew up in a religious household, I think you had to own a Switchfoot album. And they're just a great rock band, and I think that this is one of their greatest records. This or Hello Hurricane. I have to say Hello Hurricane is probably my favorite Switchfoot album, but this one's my favorite album for 2005. Nothing Is Sound. All right, moving on. This is slightly heavier. This is Tool, 10,000 Days. Tool is a crazy band, man. They are super talented. It's basically almost nu metal, kind of, because it's got that kind of grunge metal feel. I don't know how to say grunge and metal together, but Tool is basically their own genre because they are so technically gifted on everything that they do. Vicarious is probably my favorite song on this album. 2006 was a good year for rock music if you liked that very crisp, clean nu metal sound, or at least what I would call crisp production. It doesn't sound very muddy, the production. It's very clear, but it's rock. And this is just a quintessential Tool album, 10,000 Days. I like Writing To, The Pot. That's also a fantastic song on this album. Very good album from 2006, Tool, 10,000 Days. Alrighty, babies. Let's see. Amberlin Cities. This is probably my favorite band of all time. Amberlin. I have such a soft spot for this band. I mean, they're kind of, I'd have to say, rock, pop rock, in the same vein as the Killers, I'd have to say. Similar music. Maybe a little bit more edgy because their guitars are tuned a little bit lower, so it's a little bit more metal bass, I'd have to say, but nowhere near the metal vocals or anything. Stephen Christian, who is the singer in the band, has a very soft voice. Actually, it's actually very pretty, but the production usually lends itself so you can hear his voice better in recordings than you can in the live session because their guitars are so loud, and a full band is usually overpowering to a vocalist, and especially him because he has such a lower tone in his voice. But it's a beautiful. He has a beautiful voice. I'm not saying he doesn't, but Amberlin, This Man Will Repair is probably my favorite song on this album, and Finn, of course, which is an excellent a closing song that absolutely closes, unlike any other closer album track of all time, I'd have to say. Amberlin Cities. If you haven't listened to Amberlin and you like the rock sound, or just a little bit more like teetering on new metal, Amberlin Cities, give it a try. 2007's quintessential album, in my opinion. This is a band from Winter Haven, Florida, by the way, and they're very talented. They continue to do stuff now. They broke up for a little while, and then now they're back at it again after you can't tour anymore because of quarantine. But, you know, we're all doing new things in the world because of quarantine. The Raconteurs, a fantastic album from 2008, Consolers of the Lonely. Probably my favorite song on the album is Consolers of the Lonely, or Salute Your Solution. The opening tracks are killer on this album. If you like rock music at all, you will love the Raconteurs. This is Brandon Benson and Jack White's band. Also, Detroit-based musician Brandon Benson joins Jack White, who is of the White Stripes, and they create rock magic. Patrick Keeler on the drums, and I'm sorry, I forgot your name, bassist. I just had his name in my head, and it just escaped me. Jack Lawrence. Ha! I got your name. I got your name, bassist. You like that? I also like Carolina Drama because it has Carolina in the name, and we're from Carolina. Come on now. You gotta love it. The Raconteurs, Consolers of the Lonely, 2008's best album, in my opinion. Great record. All right. Next, I have a singer-songwriter from Oregon, and his name is Matt Carney, City of Black and White. This is a wonderful 180-gram pressing, and it's also signed, which is pretty cool. Where's the signature? There it is. Nice. I'm very happy I got this signed. Anyway, this is just a great singer-songwriter album. It's very low-key. I think anybody can appreciate this album. It's not hard rock or anything. It's very, very slow, very radio-friendly music. And I mean, most of these songs have debuted on the radio. Like Here We Go, that was on the radio. All I Have, also on the radio. My favorite song is probably Runaway Car. It's a pretty song. And City of Black and White, which is the title track of this album, and a very pretty song, I have to say. Matt Carney, City of Black and White, my favorite album from 2009. Speaking of singer-songwriters, we got Brandon Flowers, 2010's quintessential album, Flamingo. He is the lead singer of The Killers, so that was 2004's best album. So Flamingo is his debut as a solo artist, Brandon Flowers, and this is Las Vegas through and through. It's exactly what you would picture if you went to Las Vegas in your mind. As you can see, there's Las Vegas in the window right there. There are Vegas-based bands, so that they probably are referencing all the good stuff like Welcome to Fabulous Las Vegas, Only the Young, Playing with Fire. Crossfire is probably the biggest song on this album, and it's very catchy. This is very radio-friendly too. You would absolutely like this if you like slow, adult contemporary kind of music. Brandon Flowers is very talented and a great songwriter. I love that he gets to shine on this solo album, and it's 2010's best album in my opinion. All right, moving on. Oh, goodness. 1997, 2010. Okay. All right, 2011, another decade. Moving on. This is Mute Math, Odd Soul. Mute Math is an awesome band. They do a lot of technically interesting things. They're rock, just like any other rock band, but they are innovative. They don't actually go by the book, I'd have to say. There's a song called Quarantine on here that's pretty fitting to this year, I'd have to say. It's a beautiful, beautiful album, all put together. And probably my favorite Mute Math record, and I think it's 2011's best album. And this one's pretty rare if you look online, which I know that's an aside and not really relevant, but it's pretty cool. I'm so glad to have this in my collection. Mute Math Odd Soul, 2011's best album. IMO. All right, the Avett Brothers. This is one of the first albums I ever bought on vinyl. This is The Carpenter. This is their 2012 album. The Avett Brothers are from Concord, North Carolina, which is great. We have that local connection, and they make great music. It's, I think they described it as newgrass, where it's not really bluegrass, and it's more scaled back than that. Like, there is banjos, and there's the same instruments as you would see in bluegrass, but it's not technically like nasally vocal and all that good stuff. So it's not really bluegrass. But they got some beautifully written songs on here. The Once a Future Carpenter, February 7, which is a favorite of mine, and Life, which is a beautiful song to close out the album. And this album is just stellar all the way through. I love the album cover. It's very cool. And I'm happy that this is one of the first albums I ever bought. I actually bought this at Merlefest in 2016. I think 2016. I bought this at Merlefest. Or 2015. I don't know. I've been to Merlefest a couple times, and I can't remember. But the Avett Brothers. All right. Moving on. All right. Where are we at now? 2013. Yep, 2013. This is Queens of the Stone Age again. This is also a fantastic album. I believe they won a Grammy for this album. This is called Like Clockwork by Queens of the Stone Age. They are also a desert-based band. I believe they're from Vegas as well, or at least Nevada. I don't know if it's from Vegas, but I know they're from Nevada. Keep Your Eyes Peeled is a great song. My God is the Sun is a great song. Smooth Sailing, and Like Clockwork. The title track of this album is a great song. I don't think you can really go wrong with this album. It's not too heavy either. I think anybody who enjoys rock music just casually will enjoy this album. After a few listens, the earworms will get in your head and you'll enjoy this album. Love that album. All right, Queens of the Stone Age, Like Clockwork. Moving on. We're at 2014 now. Yeah, 2014. Sturgill Simpson. Modern sounds in country music. Turtles All the Way Down, Life is Sin, Long White Line. This is where modern country music hits its stride, in my opinion. Is from 2014, 2015, 2016, and 2017. I feel like they just killed it. Modern country music killed it, I have to say, because this is a great modern country album, and the next one's I'm going to talk about too. So 2014's Meta-Modern Sounds in Country Music. Also produced by Dave Cobb, who also produced the next record, who produced Chris Stapleton's Traveler. Mercury Records artist Chris Stapleton released this in 2015. Chris Stapleton's a very talented singer and songwriter. He wrote for many people. I mean, Luke Bryan, Darius Rucker. Basically, if you could name him in the modern country pantheon of music, he's wrote a song for them. But he decided to make his own music, and I'm so glad he did, because this is an amazing album. Traveler is a great song. Tennessee Whiskey. I mean, Fire Away. All of these are on a playlist. They're on your playlist probably already. You know this is a great album. I don't have to keep singing the praises of Chris Stapleton and his gigantic beard. There we go. Traveler, Chris Stapleton, 2015 and 2016. Moving on. Sturgill Simpson's A Sailor's Guide to Earth. I have two Sturgill Simpson albums like back to back just because it's so good. His music is great and really speaks to my soul and the rest of my body too, I think. This is a beautiful, beautiful album. It starts very low and slow, so it's not like you're gonna be dancing in the first few songs, but I think it's really beautiful, and it's a great look and a new, fresh look at what touring life would be like. I have to say, is probably the theme of the album, and taking a musician away from his family and everything that he's known. It's pretty much what A Sailor's Guide to Earth is about. Breaker's Roar is probably my favorite song on this album. Call to Arms is probably the most famous one on this one, I'd have to say. But Lord knows, I don't know. In Bloom probably is too. The Nirvana cover is also pretty popular. And this one came out in 2016. Great Sturgill Simpson album. All right, moving on. We are to 2017. This is Tyler Childers' Purgatory. We've talked about most of these country music albums on my top 5 modern country music. But this album is 2017's quintessential album, in my opinion. Tyler Childers is also from Kentucky, as well as Sturgill Simpson. This album, his voice is just so iconic, I think. I think if you like country music at all, you'll love his voice and say, wow, that's an innovative voice. I don't know really how he came up with that, or if that's just his natural voice. But I don't know if he came out the womb singing like this. So I'd have to say that he came over time and practicing a lot. White House Road is probably the biggest song on this album, or Feathered Indians too. It's a pretty good song on the album. Purgatory's good too. That's pretty funny. Tyler Childers, Purgatory, 2017's quintessential album. We're just going right through these, folks. All right. Now we're modern day, basically. 2018's Boarding House Reach, Jack White. We've talked about Jack White. He's from the White Stripes. They're back on tours. And he did a solo album, and this is fantastic. So he got very innovative as far as using different instruments you wouldn't really think of. He uses a lot of synths in this album. It's not really a drum-based album. It's more of the electronic, I'd have to say. But he does such a good job on here. There's a song called Ice Station Zebra on here, which is the weirdest title for anything, but I love this song. Corporation and Connected by Love is also on here. Over and Over and Over, which is probably the most popular song on this album. Of course, I don't know though. Modern albums are hard to determine what the best song is on it, because radio play usually determine what the single was. And when radio kind of phased out, we don't really know what the most popular song is on the album, unless you just look at the number of likes they get on Spotify, or popularity, little bars on Spotify. But this is 2018 Jack White, Boarding House Reach, my favorite album of 2018. All right, last year, I feel like there wasn't any studio albums that really did it for me in 2019. But this one is Bruce Springsteen on Broadway. It's basically him doing a stripped-down acoustic set on Broadway, and he tells the story of how he got to be who he is, and all the songs from his career that you know him by. I mean, Born in the USA, Thunder Road, Dancing in the Dark, all the songs that you know of Bruce Springsteen, he performed on this in a stripped-down acoustic set, and you know I'm a sucker for stripped-down acoustic sets. This is at the Walter Kerr Theater in New York City on October 12th, 2017, and December 15th, 2018, but the album came out 2019. So this is my favorite album of 2019, Springsteen on Broadway. And for this year, we've made it all the way to 2020, the quarantine-induced year. And I already have my favorite album of 2020. It's going to take a miracle to top it from now until the end of December. And I don't think it's going to happen. This is The New Abnormal by The Strokes. What a fantastic album. I am so blown away by this thing. We had the Strokes in 2001 as well as my favorite album, and this album is really their return to form. I think that they kind of went astray on their last two releases, but with the Come Down Machine and I can't remember the title of the other one, but this album really is fantastic. Ode to the Mets is great. At the Door, Selfless, beautiful, beautiful song. Yeah, the adults are talking. This album is very, very good. I'm so happy it came out this year because 2020 has really stunk, but this has been a really good bright spot. And I'm very happy to have this album in my collection. The Strokes, my favorite album of 2020, The New Abnormal. Well, thank you so much for going through my favorite albums from every year that I've been alive, all 23 years. I appreciate you watching, and if you made it to the end, congratulations. You've ran a marathon with me. Everybody have a blessed day, and thank you for watching Vinyl Voyage. See you later.